Go into the world and tell every man that you meet, there is a man on the cross.
A Catholic Take. What you need to know right now. A bold synthesis of inspiration and information. Keeping you up to date on the news and issues from a courageous Catholic perspective.
A Catholic Take with Joe McLean starts now.
Good morning and welcome to the Catholic Take. If you're looking for the mellifluous tones of Joe McLean and you're asking yourself, who is this imposter? Guest hosting, my name is Lou Murray. I'm the chairman of the board of Boston Catholic Radio. I'm a Boston-based financial planner and a sometimes political pundit for NPR and New England Cable News from the right-hand side of the ledger. I'm also a regular contributor to the Boston Herald, but you may have seen my writing in the Patriot Ledger, the Akron Beacon Journal, Ohio.com, or the Boston Globe, the Colorado Gazette, or the Worcester Telegram. Good morning and welcome to the Catholic Take. Got a really great show lined up for you today. Our guests include Steve Bannon, media executive and former CEO of the 2016 Donald Trump for President campaign, Jay Boren, headmaster of the most Catholic school in America, St. Benedict's Classical Academy, and Mary Margaret O'lohan, a senior reporter for the Daily Signal and a graduate of Catholic University in America, and a term you don't hear often anymore, a pit bull reporter. She really goes for the story, and her faithfulness is part of that pit bull tenacity. So hang on for the full hour. We're gonna hopefully you're really gonna enjoy this. And we'll get started with prayer. And I'd ask everyone to join me in a special way. Remember our Bishop McManus of Worcester, who has stepped on a secular shibboleth by declaring that boys will be boys and girls will be girls in the Worcester Catholic schools. And he's under attack from the mainstream media. And when you're under attack, you are over the target. So, Bishop McManus, we're holding you in prayer today. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thine intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. Well, it's my first time guest hosting this show, and I need your prayers and cooperation, so we'll hope that everything goes okay. And I want to thank my producer, James Farmer, who's been my Catholic Sherpa here, and he's talking in my ear so that I do everything right the way Joe would want me to do it. And now, your saint of the day, Pope St. Pius X, Pope and Confessor, whose memorial we celebrate today. Giuseppe Sarto was born in Italy in 1835, the son of a poor shoemaker. He knew his vocation early on and was an excellent student in Padua before his ordination in 1858. He was consecrated Bishop of Mantua in 1884, made a cardinal within a decade, and elected Pope in 1903. Taking the name Pius X, as Pope, he was a zealous reformer, known for his hard line against modernism, which he dubbed the synthesis of all heresies. He also promoted a catechism, a revised breviary, and promoted the restoration of Gregorian chant through the efforts of the monks of Solemn Abbey. He decreed at early age of 7 from making First Holy Communion, and rather than the early teens that had long been the custom, and encouraged more frequent and even daily reception of the Holy Communion by all Catholics. Pius also reorganized the Curia, began the commission that would codify canon law, a project completed in 1917. Pius struggled throughout his entire reign with increasing hostility to the Holy See on the part of secular governments. The Pope remained a prisoner of the Vatican at the hands of the Italian government, a stance that lasted until the Lateran Treaty of 1929. The stress of such an active pontificate, made worse by a heart attack and the opening salvos of World War I, finally led to his death on August 20th, 1914. He was canonized by Pope Venerable Pius XII. Pope Pius X, pray for us and pray for me today that the Catholic Take will be everything the listeners of the Station of the Cross Network wants in a morning show. And here's the headline news. Synod voters claims a large number of bishops are ready to take steps to women's ordination. A synod on synodality voting lay member shared in a recent interview that a large number of bishops are now ready to take clear steps to women's ordination via a discussion of women deacons. Helena Jepsen-Spuler, a member of the Swiss delegation to the Synod Europeans Assembly, gave an interview earlier this month with the German Catholic news outlet Forum, in which Jepsen suggested the Synod on Synodality will bring about changes to the Catholic Church teaching on key doctrinal issues, including women's ordination. Her statement underscores concerns that the Synod on Synodality could attempt to condone same-sex relations in some manner, especially considering that Pope Francis has named a bevy of pro-LGBT clerics and even laymen as voting members of the Synod. These include Cardinal Jean-Claude Hollerich of the Jesuits, Relator General of the Synod, who has described church teaching on the sinfulness of homosexuality acts as false. Father James Martin, a notoriously pro-LGBT priest who has promoted same-sex civil unions, and Cardinal Blaise Cupich, who has promoted LGBTQ masses. That's concerning. 5.5 earthquake hits Los Angeles during a tropical storm. A 5.5 magnitude earthquake hit Los Angeles on Sunday afternoon, while Southern California experiences a historic tropical storm from Hurricane Hillary. Reports indicate that the epicenter occurred 2 miles north of Ojai near Santa Barbara. No indication of any severe damage as of yet. Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom already declared a state of emergency this weekend over Hurricane Hillary. Today, Governor Gavin Newsom proclaimed a state of emergency for much of Southern California to support Hurricane Hillary response and recovery efforts as the state continues to mobilizing and coordinating resources ahead of the storm's forecasted impacts starting today. Crews are battling wildfires in Canada. Canadian authorities continue to battle wildfires throughout the country as tens of thousands of residents were placed on evacuation orders on Sunday. Authorities said 35,000 residents, about twice the seating capacity of Madison Square Garden, were placed under an evacuation order in British Columbia as fire crews continued to put out fires across the province. The provincial government also issued a state of emergency, urging residents not to travel to the central interior and southeast portions of the province for non-essential reasons. Fire crews are also trying to keep blazes under control in the country's northwest territories, an area where forecasters warned that drier and windier weather conditions were approaching. This comes as Canada has dealt with a record number of wildfires this year. The wildfires also greatly affected the country's neighbors in the south as wildfires caused choking smoke in parts of the U.S. And those are your headlines, and I can confirm from New England that we have had a lot of hazy, smoky days. And now the gospel. A young man approached Jesus and said, "Teacher, what good must I do to gain eternal life?" He answered him, "Why do you ask me about the good? There is only one who is good. If you wish to enter into life, keep the commandments." He asked him, "Which ones?" And Jesus replied, "You shall not kill. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness. Honor your father and mother, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself." The young man said to him, "All of these I have observed. What do I still lack?" Jesus said to him, "If you wish to be perfect, go, sell what you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come, follow me." When the young man heard this statement, he went away sad, for he had many possessions. And a brief commentary from Haydock's Catholic Bible Commentary. In today's gospel, Jesus seems to be reiterating the importance of adhering to the commandments by stating there is only one who is good. He's telling us God alone, by his own nature, is essential, absolutely, and unchangeably good at the same time. He is the source of all created goodness, as all goodness is a mere emanation from his. The person here addressing our Savior appears not to have believed that Christ was God. Wherefore our Savior, to rectify his misconception, tells him that God alone is good, and insinuating thereby that evangelical perfection consists in the observance of God's commandments. So I hear the music, and I think that means I have a break. And so I am going to let you go and fill your coffee mug and come back, and we're going to be talking to Steve Bannon. Good morning and welcome to the Catholic Take. I'm Lou Murray. I'm guest hosting today for Joe McClain. And my guest is an American media executive, political strategist, graduate of the Harvard Business School, and CEO of the 2016 Donald Trump for President campaign, and host of The War Room, America's leading podcast and radio program. Welcome, Steve Bannon.
Lou, thanks for having me. Always honored to be on your show and talking to many of the traditional devout Catholics throughout the nation.
I guess that's one moniker that I left out, that you are a leading Catholic layman, and thank you for making time to be with us today, Steve.
Lou, I wouldn't want to denigrate the real layman to do the work. I'm just a sinner that's a dumb Mick fighting Irishman. So that's about as high as I go.
We need more fighting Irishmen, if that's the case. So let's take a quick spin around politics for a few minutes with our listeners. And yesterday's Sunday morning shows are driving the freight train of Democratic and Republican messaging. And it's apparent that, the lawfare, all of these indictments against Donald Trump, isn't working. And some of the Republican candidates are starting to go negative. One candidate, a governor of Florida who will remain unnamed, called supporters of Trump and the Make America Great Again movement listless vessels. What are your thoughts on yesterday's Sunday show?
Well, as a naval officer that served for about 8 years, 4 of those at sea in the Pacific Fleet, I have never heard using a nautical term, listless vessels, to describe the deplorables. I think it's outrageous, and obviously it's a Hillary Clinton type of moment of a floundering campaign. I think the deeper thing is to what you mentioned, is that this polling, and if you look at the Sunday show, CBS News came out with a shock poll that, shows Trump up, 40, 50 points. Just emphasizes the fact that remember, for your audience, this primary is 1,000% driven by Rupert Murdoch. This is driven by Rupert Murdoch and the Fox News empire, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, and Murdoch's Fox News and Fox Business, to try to kneecap Trump like they tried to do in 2015. But this time more seriously. This is why this whole construct of this primary, which is a joke right now, we should be focused all our money, because they're going to spend $500 million going after Trump. That money is desperately needed to do what these outside groups do, to make sure they can't steal the 2024 election with mail-in ballots, with phony registrations, with whatever they do with the machines. The Mike Lindell group has a deep analysis of that. Mm-hmm. But you're seeing this lawfare. The lawfare is backfiring clearly, because I think with Fonnie Willis they jumped the shark. People are looking at this now with 90-some indictments, 700 years in prison. They realize, the average American realizes something is deeply wrong here. What I'm not quite comfortable with is the Trump teams, and Trump, really not so much his team, associated groups not being on offense like the groups opposed to Trump are on offense. And the Sunday show is a perfect example. I didn't really see a counter-narrative building there, and particularly people demanding that a formal impeachment inquiry start against Joe Biden. Now that we know he have his emails and he's changed his name and he's lied about it, this is getting to be a crisis as the Chinese economy, which has $62 trillion of real estate value, quote unquote, is auguring into the hillside and collapsing before our eyes, with the oligarchs on Wall Street trying to do a bailout of the Chinese Communist Party. Right now, more than ever, we need a formal inquiry into how Joe Biden sold out the country to the Chinese Communist Party for money. So there's a lot going on. I think the American people understand that they're backing Trump more than ever because these numbers are off the charts. I'd just like to see us be on offense more with affiliated groups around President Trump. He can't do everything, and people are depending on him and doing too much right now.
It's a great point, Steve. I'm reminded of one of the British wags said that Churchill was like a tensile wire, that the more you stretched it, the greater the spring. And he couldn't be defeated by opinions and media bashing. He only gets larger and stronger like a lion. And I think we're seeing that with Donald Trump. But yeah, when Donna Brazile is your best defender on the Sunday morning shows, and Ken Cuccinelli and a governor you've never heard of spend their time tisking the base, it was sad, a sad show for Republican messaging. And when I say Republican messaging, I'm talking about the only party that is holding up the values that Catholics are interested in.
Well, the MAGA party, here's the thing most disturbing, and for your audience, I think probably the most relevant. Remember, a big part of this lawfare is not simply aimed at Trump. Obviously, that's their lead target. It's also aimed at the MAGA movement. And that's why you've seen in both Michigan and in Georgia indictments of a broad range of people. Many of these are devout Catholics and Christians that just were doing their duty according to the Electoral Count Act of 1887 and how John Kennedy and Nixon worked through Hawaii in 1960. And these
Correct.
people, remember, in Michigan, the average age of the electors in Michigan, the alternative or contingent electors, is 73 years old. And they're facing multiple felonies that could be minimum of 14 to 16 years in prison. So they would die in prison if they were convicted. They won't be, but if they were, and it's going to cost them hundreds of thousands, not millions of dollars. They're trying to break the Trump movement at the same time they're trying to break President Trump. That's why I think the polling's so powerful, because people are saying, I know something's up here. Maybe I don't even love Trump, but I've never seen the state apparatus come after an individual or his followers like this in the history of this country, and I reject it.
Absolutely, and you're dead on there. You know, I was in Washington at the White House on January the 6th on the Ellipse, and there was almost 1 million people there, and those people all went home. A very small amount of people actually went into the doors of the Congress. But all those people went home and talked about what a peaceful day it was, and they are spreading the word that this is between January 6th and the events of the election itself. There's no doubt that things are askew, and I think the people are onto it.
I think the numbers are showing you that. That's why the Murdochs, remember, the Murdochs are driving this primary. The reason they're driving this primary is to get Trump as dinged up as possible. So then in the general, where they will support, because remember, they were essentially Hillary Clinton supporters before we beat her. They will either support Biden, who I think highly unlikely to be the nominee, or a Michelle Obama, or a Gavin Newsom. As long as they're committed to not raise taxes on the wealthy. And for your audience, remember, the Democrats are never going to raise taxes on the wealthy, right? That's all performative, because the wealthy are their base. You know, their base is the oligarchs, the wealthy, and the very, very poor, the proletariat. Working class people, the middle class, the working middle class, the working poor. Those are all MAGA, right?
Exactly, Steve. I've been working on the 2016 campaign. I saw that up close and personal. You know, that Wall Street is 100% the money machine of the Democratic Party. And people seem to think it's the other way around, but no.
This is why they hate Trump, by the way, for your audience. This is why they're trying to destroy Trump. In Washington, D.C., not in the room, not in the deal. Trump not only puts you in the room, he puts you at the head of the table. That's why they hate him. That's why they have to destroy him. And they're going to destroy the inner and outer circle of MAGA leaders at the same time. This is all-out war by other means. They're coming at you using every aspect of the administrative and deep state in the quote-unquote legal system to destroy MAGA right now.
Yeah, the glorious thing about Donald Trump is that he goes over the heads of the elites in both the media and in other realms of society, and he talks directly to the people. And he has made a beautiful chess move here to short circuit the debate, and he's going to be on Twitter speaking with Tucker Carlson, who had to do an exit from Fox News. What are your thoughts on that?
I've been an advocate of this since CPAC when I called out the Murdochs of being a bunch of foreigners trying to involve themselves in American presidential politics. For your audience, please, whatever you do, do not turn on Fox on Wednesday night. Do not watch this debate. Don't have your friends turn off. We need to make sure they have very little ratings. And if you're not on Twitter, just come to our Getter account. We're going to be live streaming the Tucker interview with the president. We'll be doing other programming too. So I think it's alternative programming that night. Whatever you do, don't turn into the Keebler elves, because all you're going to see is a hate fest against President Trump.
I think Trump and Tucker are must-watch TV, as they used to say about Thursday night. But
I would agree with you, sir.
Yeah. So the last several weeks, MSNBC has been spotlighting a Baptist preacher who's been sermonizing about the collapse of American Christianity and so concerned about Baptists and Catholics,
He's
supporting.
Terrible. He's terrible.
Absolutely.
He's a liberal evangelical. Here's what they're trying to do. The biggest fear they have right now, what you're going to be tainted with, is called Christian nationalism. And this is traditional Catholics, devout Catholics, and evangelical Christians that understand this country's in a complete collapse. So they're trying to put fear in people that's saying, oh, we're like the American Taliban. And what they're going to roll out, this is the way they're going to do it. They're going to roll out various left-wing and progressive evangelical preachers like this Russell Moore guy, who I think he owns one of the big Christian magazines. They're going to sit there and say, this is so terrible. These people are misguided and following somebody like Trump who doesn't believe in Christian values. This is all to come after the foundational element of American society, which is those church-going Catholics and Christians. They're really the basis of our civic society. Remember, society's in a collapse right now because of these radical atheist, neo-Marxist globalists that are trying to destroy the taproot of religious belief in this country. That's where we have to come together and join and link arms with our evangelical brothers and sisters to make sure that we make a political statement now, that you can't sit on the sidelines. And as people know, the official church administration of this country is a total left-wing disaster, right? These people are the most progressive left-wing, I think, almost in the country. And we have to stand up to it. We have to stand up to it.
Absolutely. The bishops who do stand up, the bishops who do fight, like the Bishop of Worcester and Bishop Strickland in Texas, the people rally to their side. And the people want fighters like Trump and fighters like Bishop Strickland in Texas. Steve, we've got about 2 minutes left, and I don't want to cut you off. And you're always so good asking people on your show, how can people get a hold of you? How can people hear more about what you have to say? Can you tell people
I think the simplest way to do it is just go to warroom.org. You can get all of our content. We're on something like 75 different platforms. I try to make the show. We're 4 hours a day, 2 hours in the morning from 10 to noon Eastern Daylight Time, and then from 5 to 7 Eastern Daylight Time in the afternoon. 4 hours a day and 2 hours on Saturday morning from 10 to noon. Everything is free. We try to make it ubiquitous. We don't have a paywall.
I'm going to cut you off right there, Steve, because this is kind of a back to school show, and you are the proud dad of a West Point graduate, Captain Maureen Bannon, and she has been uncorrupted by the world. So obviously you've done something right. And with a lot of parents tuning in and they're getting ready for school, and is there a book you'd recommend to parents, or maybe someone, a young person who's listening?
I have a very specific book I would strongly recommend every young person, every parent read it. You ought to read a part of it every day. The Gospel According to Mark. Just start with the Gospel According to Mark. You can read it in one sitting, and you should read it multiple times. It is not Jesus Christ as a social justice warrior. It's Jesus Christ as an exorcist against the devil. Read the Gospel According to Mark every day. That'll do it. That'll do it for you, Lou.
Evil is real, and you're one of St. Michael's angels, and thank you for being with us, Steve Bannon. I wish you God bless and good luck.
So honored, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. You're listening to The Catholic Take, and I'm Lou Murray, guest hosting today for Joe McLean. And we're going to start the second half hour of today's program with some news headlines. The Holy Father thinks you should be less rigid. Christians should imitate Jesus in being steadfast and inflexible in their convictions, thus being open to change for the good of others, Pope Francis said on Sunday. This is what God is like. He is love. And the one who loves does not remain rigid, the Pope said on August 20th. You stand firm, you stay firm, not rigid, quote unquote. The Christian, he added, does not remain rigid in his own positions, but allows him or herself to be moved or touched. He or she knows how to change plans. It's creative love. The Pope addressed a crowd of people from a window overlooking St. Peter's Square for his usual Sunday address and Angelus prayer on a hot, late August day in Rome. An estimated 10,000 people were present, according to the Vatican. He encouraged Catholics to ask themselves a few questions, including, am I capable of changing opinion? Do I know how to be understanding and compassionate? Or do I remain rigid in my position? And Bishop Olson has continued his fight with the Carmelite nuns, stating they might be excommunicated. According to the Pillar, Fort Worth's bishop said on Saturday that one or more of the nuns might have incurred on Friday an excommunication because of a scandalous and schismatic statement issued by a Carmelite monastery in Arlington, Texas. The bishop's warning came one day after a statement released on Friday from the Carmelite Monastery of Arlington, Texas, in which both Mother Teresa Agnes Garlick and the monastery's leadership group said they no longer recognize the authority of and can have no further relations with the current Bishop of Fort Worth or his officials. Olson said Saturday that he believed the nun's statement was an act of schism, a public rejection of his authority as diocesan bishop and pontifical commissary of the nuns' monastery. So it's not clear whether the bishop intends to initiate an administrative penal process to resolve clearly whether the nuns are excommunicated or if the matter will remain ambiguous. Little side comment, pro tip, don't fight with the nuns. Hawaii's Governor Josh Green, 1,000 plus people still unaccounted for after the devastating Maui fire. Hawaii Governor Josh Green said during an interview over the weekend that more than 1,000 people are still unaccounted for following the devastating Maui fire that struck the small town of Lahaina earlier this month. The fire from a couple weeks ago has already been designated as the deadliest fire in the United States in over a century, with over 100 lives confirmed lost, and it has triggered intense criticism of President Joe Biden over his lack of response to the tragedy. More than 1,000 are unaccounted for, about 1,050, and it's going to take several weeks still to pin down this number, Green said. Some of the challenges are extraordinary. As has been reported, 85% of the land of the impact zone has been covered now by what amounts to an army of search and rescue team and 41 dogs. So 85% of the land has been covered, Green said, and that there are going to be people that will never be found because of how intense the fire was, but he assured viewers that the state officials were doing everything they could with the FBI to try to identify any remains they happened to find. May those victims rest in peace. And those are your headlines. And onto something a whole lot more joyful. I have wanted for a long, long time to talk about St. Benedict's Classical Academy over the airwaves of the Station of the Cross Network. It's the only Catholic school founded by mothers who were upset that their parochial school wasn't nourishing their children's souls enough. Plenty of plaid, not enough trad, and not enough of the good stuff. And here to talk about the good stuff is the headmaster of the school, Jay Boren. Jay, welcome to the Catholic Take.
Hi, Lou. Thank you. Thanks so much for having us.
Well, I was at your annual fundraising banquet to celebrate 10 years of the school, and I was so struck by the speech that you made after dinner that I asked you for a copy of it, and we're going to post that to the after show notes so that people all over the country can read your thoughts. And I was struck by what you said about the importance of education and reflecting on what is the role of a school. And you said that night, getting into a great secondary school is awesome. Going to an Ivy League school is terrific. But I must be honest, I care a lot more about whether or not our sixth graders are still receiving the sacraments when they are 30, 50, 60, and so on. When so many contemporary educators say that they educate the whole child, it is a lie. They are neglecting the most important aspect of the human person, their soul. The true goal of education is attaining wisdom and truth so that people can seek an encounter with the truth, Jesus Christ. God bless you for that. And tell us about your school.
Yeah, thanks, Lou. It was great to have you. Yeah, St. Benedict's in so many ways is I think, a miracle. We're here in Metro West Boston, in Massachusetts, obviously. I sometimes point out we're geographically 5 minutes right in between two closed Catholic schools. Just 2 minutes in one direction, 5 minutes in another. There'd be two schools that closed, not a long time ago. And yet our school, founded by mothers, as you said, 11 years ago now, with 20 students and some rented office space, has now grown to almost 260 students. We have our own building. Then we have 4 rented spaces to accommodate that growth. And as I'm sure we'll talk about, building a new school so that all of our students can be under one roof. So we're super excited. It is a great blessing. It's been quite miraculous to watch it grow so fast in such a short period of time. But it's truly a good place. I'm so thrilled to be a part of it.
Your brick and mortar that is being constructed as we speak is an apostolic witness for a distinctly Christian culture and way of life through our schools. Tell us about the new school. And you went from really temporary facilities 10 years ago to a $25 million project, the first new school, Catholic school, built in 50 years in Greater Boston. And you've got $19 million of that raised. And I know there are a lot of worthy causes that our listeners hear about, but I think many people want to give to Catholic schools, and maybe their Catholic school is closed. So when you're telling us about the new school, be sure to tell us how people can get in touch with you or your website, because there may be a big donor out there, a Daddy Warbucks, that wants to help you with that $6 million deficit in the building of that great new school.
Yeah, we're thrilled. We broke ground in May, which was a terrific event, and we're looking forward to hopefully a completion next fall for next school year. It really, as I said, this entire project has been a miracle. I said, I've been at the school. This is coming on my 9th year as the headmaster, and I remember telling the Board of Trustees when I interviewed with them, we're Catholic, which means, in part at least, what that means is we believe that the sacraments and prayers are efficacious, right? They accomplish something. So if we'll remain faithful to the Church's sacramental life and to the Lord, we'll be blessed. I feel like He'll bless our endeavors, and it hasn't been without troubles along the way, but He has blessed us, and just raising what we've raised to this point is nothing short of miraculous. And we're building a classical school. We wanted the architecture to match our mission. That was very important to us. Architecture is truly the first teacher of the student. And so, we used to build beautiful things as a culture, and we've gotten away from that. And so it was really very important to us that this building be worthy of our mission. I think Winston Churchill said something like, "We shape our buildings and thereafter they shape us." And I think that there's a lot of wisdom in that. So we wanted something that was going to stand the test of time and still be a witness in its very existence 100 years from now, after I'm long gone and we're long gone. So, we're super excited. It is a beautiful building. I would, encourage everyone to go take a look at it. You can see it on our website, www.stbca.org. We're easy to find on the internet. If you hit St. Benedict Classical Academy in Massachusetts, you'd find us very quickly.
I mentioned Daddy Warbucks, a big donor, but if your Catholic school is closed and you're looking for someone to support, it doesn't matter the size of the contribution. I know it will be put to great use by Jay. Jay, you have the wonderful Alabama accent, and of course I have the terrible, harsh Boston, New England accent. How'd you get to New England? How were you attracted to this classical academy?
Sure. I'm from Mobile, Alabama, originally, and I met my wife there in graduate school, and I taught Catholic high school for 11 or 12 years. My wife taught Catholic elementary school for 10 years. But we met, and she is a New Englander. She is from Massachusetts. We had met in Mobile, and after we got married and had our first child, she was really ready to come home and be close to her family, and so we were looking, but not 100% committed to moving. We kind of agreed if we found a good job and it felt like the Lord was calling us there, that we'd go. And lo and behold, I had become an admirer of classical education from afar, and but with no real outlet for it, where I was at that time, and somehow came upon a job posting for a headmaster of a new classical school in Massachusetts. It was just
we have been blessed ever since. And I've got to cut you off because I want to play a quick clip that gives all the joy that your school, and I think we're going to hear a little bit from your chaplain, Father Stam. So let's play that, James.
The good news of the gospel really pervades everything that's done here at St. Benedict's. All the subjects, in one way or another, go back to that fundamental reality that God is truth.
It's amazing to see kids navigate their development so happily here.
We're laying the foundation to form saints and scholars.
I think that's actually what it's all about, is that we're exposing them to all of this curriculum and all of this love and support that we hope sinks in, and then they're able to actually make connections with their life and their experiences.
If you want for your child an authentically Catholic education that is going to provide them with a rigorous academic curriculum that will help them grow to appreciate the good, the true, and the beautiful, then I think St. Benedict's is the place for you.
We have about 25 seconds or so left. Do you have any advice, a book, or to parents or children and priests who want to make their Catholic school more Catholic?
I would recommend another school's educational plan, actually. St. Jerome's educational plan in Hyattsville, Maryland, really seeded the birth of so many classical schools across the country. And so I would Google that, and you could find it really easily on the internet. And it is beautiful. It's what attracted me to classical education, and I know the founders of our school were inspired by it as well.
We're going to post that to our after-school notes, and in the background, you can hear some children singing the Salve Regina, and prayer is part of every class. And these are the kinds of sounds that you'll hear in the hallways and in the auditorium for assemblies. And I wanted to wind up with this sound because I heard one of your graduates say the thing that he was going to miss the most when he left St. Benedict's Classical Academy was singing together. So thank you very much for your time, Jay.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lou. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, Mother Miriam Live fans. James here, the producer of the show. Starting on Monday, August 28th, we'll be coming to you live on weekdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And don't worry, you'll still be able to start your mornings with Mother, because Mother Angelica Classics will now occupy the 10 a.m. hour. This change should make it easier for us to be live with you each weekday, and we're certainly looking forward to it. That's Mother Miriam Live, Monday, August 28th at 2 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Station of the Cross.
Good morning and welcome back to the Catholic Take. I'm Lou Murray, guest hosting for Joe McClain, and I'm joined by Mary Margaret O'lohan of the Daily Signal. Mary, welcome to the Catholic Take.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on, and I love your name. That was my mother's name, Mary Margaret. So, Mary is the second oldest of 11 children. She's a graduate of the Catholic University of America. Her parents are so proud of her. They are from Concord and Stowe, Massachusetts. And Mary, I described you earlier as a pit bull reporter in the search for the truth. And how can people follow your reporting? I want to make sure people get to follow you on Twitter or social media, because your Catholicism and pursuit of the truth shines through everything you write and everything you video.
That is so sweet. Thank you so much. My reporting can be found at the Daily Signal, dailysignal.com. And then I tweet a lot of my stories on Twitter at Mary Margaret O'lohan. Those are the places that I put most of my reporting. You can also see our videos at Daily Signal on YouTube. We love telling personal stories that of Americans across the country, especially culture war ones. That's my main interest. So, for example, girls fighting for the integrity of women's sports and spaces, or pro-lifers who are fighting for their freedom of speech to be able to protect the unborn. Stories like that are our bread and butter at the Daily Signal.
Right. And let's see, last Friday, we had a big pro-life victory for the First Amendment in the D.C. Court of Appeals. And you were on the scene at some of the protests that sparked that court case. Let's go to the tape of a police officer stopping pro-lifers from chalking messages on the sidewalk. And let's just hear a little bit of that confrontation.
Every Saturday, right?
Every Saturday. I majored in political science. This is public property.
Every Saturday, people are here talking, and you're taking somebody, young people, and arresting them because they are simply putting Black preborn lives matter. You gotta be joking.
Okay, I think that's enough of that, James. Mary, yeah, you go where few others dare to tread. You're always out in front of the homes of the Supreme Court justices. You're in front of the very contentious abortuaries in Washington D.C., and that's where you're based out of. Tell us what's it like to be, the passive reporter jotting down notes outside the Supreme Court or outside of an abortion protest?
Well, it can be a little emotionally taxing sometimes, but a lot of the time I try and focus on telling the story that's going on, because what's weird about this beat is what we would call it, the abortion beat or the life beat. That's really just the realm of issues pertaining to life or culture. Is not a lot of reporters actually cover these topics. So, you'll see a lot of commentary on them, but you don't see a ton of reporting on them. That is like straight news telling the facts. What you will see on the left is a lot of very, very slanted so-called reporting on these topics that only includes the perspective of the pro-abortion activists or Planned Parenthood or people like that. And so when I go out there, I feel very seriously that I have a duty to be telling the stories that aren't being told. And I'm not saying I'm out there trying to do activist reporting. I'm saying I'm just there to tell what's going on. So, for example, when we go to the Supreme Court justices' houses, we tell what's going on. We have these activists outside the family home of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who lives in a very quiet, beautiful suburban neighborhood in Chevy Chase, Maryland. These activists are out there chanting horrible things, marching up and down in front of his house while no one does anything about it, even though there's a federal law that says you can't picket or parade in front of the home of a justice with the intent of influencing that justice.
I know it. Isn't it amazing? We've had all this commentary about if Donald Trump has a mean tweet about a judge, and yet you're the only reporter in the country out in front of the homes of Justice Kavanaugh, Amy Barrett, the great Justice Clarence Thomas, documenting the leftist violence against federal law, and we applaud you for that.
Thank you so much. It's honestly very. I enjoy this kind of reporting. We enjoy going out and telling these stories. My colleague Tim Kennedy will go with me. Sometimes we'll bring a camera and we'll try and talk to people. For example, at the Women's March, we went there last year. And for those who aren't familiar with the Women's March, it is a radically left-leaning protest where a lot of liberal women who maintain very far left-leaning stances will go and wear, kind of vulgar hats. And
yes, the vulgar hats.
Vulgar signs. Often have references to genitalia and things like that. And so we went and we're talking to them about where they stood on abortion last year. And a lot of these people hadn't even considered where they stood on abortion. And my colleague and I ended up getting run out of the march by a bunch of pro-trans protesters that recognized us from our earlier reporting. But, you don't see a lot of I do have friends in D.C. who work for other conservative outlets that will come to these protests. But other than that, you don't see a lot of reporters that are interested in learning people's viewpoints. A lot of them are just there to promote the left-leaning views of these activists.
Your fairness shows through your reporting, and I hope you get 100,000 more followers on Twitter from this appearance on the Station of the Cross Catholic Network, Catholic Media Network. Listen, you do some fun things too, and we got to know, did you have the fried dough or did you have the corn on the cob at the Iowa State Fair? And you can answer that question when we come back. You were out there for the kickoff of the presidential campaign season. Let's go to that clip from the Iowa State Fair, James.
What do you care the most about when it comes to presidential candidates?
The livestock industry and economy. We raise and show cattle and pigs.
We've got a lot of presidential candidates. Who do you think cares the most about what you and your family have going on?
Trump.
Yeah? Why?
I honestly don't like him as a person. I just think he's the best businessman. He's personally the only one that can get our economy to where we need it. I am overpaying $4 for diesel. It's really annoying for all of us because that's really all we drive. It just absolutely kills the economy for our tractors and all that. We've had to cut down on hours by about 3 times of what we normally did 5 years ago.
Well, Mary, we're going to post a few of your stories, and we have about a minute and a half left. And I want you to incorporate your answer that whether you had corn or fried dough. But I also want you to talk about the most underreported pro-life story, which is that there's a Kermit Gosnell-like horror show of 9 babies' remains that were found in Washington, D.C. And you won't let go of that story. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that? And remember, we have limited time.
Okay. Well, first of all, at the Iowa State Fair, that was super interesting, asking everybody what issues they cared most about and which candidate they think best represents their viewpoints. We heard a lot of answers that had to do with Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. And I did get to try the fried Oreos. They were delicious. But in terms of the most important pro-life story right now, we have been reporting on these 5 babies that pro-life activists recovered from outside a D.C. abortion clinic. I have a lot of reporting on that, and I could talk about that for hours. But so if you're interested, check out the reporting I've done at Daily Signal and Daily Wire on these babies. But the gist of the matter is that these babies look like they were illegally aborted in a very gruesome manner, and the mayor of D.C. has apparently no interest in figuring out what went on.
Well, there certainly is a lot of evil in Washington, D.C., but people like you are bringing the light upon it. And sunlight is the best disinfectant, as they say. Mary Margaret O'lohan, graduate of Catholic University. Keep up running the good race, as St. Paul might say. And thank you for being a great guest on the Catholic Take.
Thank you so much.